Hey y'all, it's Melissa here at Twin Oaks Family Farm in rural southeast Ohio, USA. Thanks for joining me in our meat bird production barn. Just doing a check-in and update on the current Cornish rock cross flock of meat birds that we have. So they are 30 days old today. Gonna take a look at the pen. Gonna just talk about, what's our agenda with raising the meat birds, what's on the to-do list for the most part every day with raising the meat birds. What are our top 3 tips? Where are these birds at in production? And show you something that we're really excited about. Don't know that it would excite most people, but if you're a poultry farmer taking care of 400 plus month-old Cornish rock cross meat chickens, trust me, this is a poultry farmer favorite. So welcome back. Thanks for joining us. So glad that you're here. If you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Y'all, we're trying to make it to 1,000 plus subscribers. We started our channel February of 2023. We're at about 954 subscribers. And as far as from our perspective, you can hover on a number of subscribers forever. What feels like forever, So I am hoping we can continue to make videos, get them uploaded, add subscribers, and continue to show people what making real good chicken involves, because we hope everybody can experience eating real food, eating great food, sourcing food directly from farmers, maybe even producing some of their own food if your season of life and your resources allow. And raising chicken is something that if we can do it, I think anybody can do it, to tell you the truth. So welcome back. Thanks for joining me. And let's take a look. I've actually been through the entire barn, which our building here is only 30 foot by 30 foot. But I have been through the entire floor space and used a simple pitchfork to condition the bedding that's already down here. I was looking at how much bedding material we've used in this flock, so I'll tell you that before we get into those things I talked about that I want to highlight in this video, those talking points. Bedding material, we use pine shavings, and they come in what we call a bale, and the capacity of it says it's 3 cubic foot. But basically this floor space that you're seeing right now that they're on is about 25 foot by 30 foot. And it takes about 6 bags to give you a moderate covering of pine shavings in this 25 foot by 30 foot space, okay? So we've used 20 bags of pine shavings with this flock. Now keep in mind, when we started this flock, you can see where these lights are suspended. So here we are now on July 11th, 2024, running 8 box fans in the pen for them to keep them the right temperature, to keep targeted cooling at them, to keep them cooled off, because right now they're running a risk of being too warm. But when they first moved in, even though they moved in June 12th and we had mild temperatures that were comfortable to us, they ran a risk of being too cold. So we had to start them out under heat lamps that target them warmth that gets them about a 95 degree Fahrenheit ambient temperature when they start out. So they started just in that floor space under where those lamps are suspended, and we can drop those lamps down. And now they're in this floor space of 25 foot by 30 foot. They'll have this floor space the rest of production, which they're 30 days old. They're going to the processor at day 41. So we feed them until day 40, and that's not out of cruelty that we don't feed them from day 40 to day 41. In fact, we pool feed on day 40. We call it feed withdrawal, and we do that to help make the butchering and processing as hygienic as possible, so that there's not undigested food in the bird, and so that there's not uneliminated manure in the bird, because we don't want those things on the processing line when these birds are being butchered and processed. So what's our agenda raising meat birds? Well, our agenda is to produce homegrown top quality poultry and to provide excellent quality of life to the livestock, in this case chickens, Cornish rock cross meat chickens, to provide them excellent quality of life during production. that's the agenda. So in layman's terms, the agenda is keep them living until processing day, okay? Keep them eating, keep them drinking, keep them comfortable, keep them living. So that's what we're after. With Cornish rock cross meat chickens, yes, it is possible that you could raise a flock and have zero loss. We know people that are raising birds right now that could tell you, I started with X number of birds, I still have X number of birds, or we've raised X number of flocks and we haven't lost birds. And that's wonderful. Be prepared though. There are tendencies to lose birds during production. In this flock, for example, we ordered 425 birds. There's usually a few extra birds in the shipping boxes from the hatchery. In this case, we actually had 434 birds move in, and we actually right now are at 426 birds, okay? And our processing appointment on July 22nd for this flock is for 400 birds. But the processor is willing and able to take that overage from 400 to 425 if we have those birds in the flock and ready to go to processing. But even here at day 30, these are really good sized birds, and they're going to grow a lot here at the end. And that's part of why when we say, on the agenda is keep them living, I mean, that sounds like a joke, but we mean that in all seriousness. Keep them living. Do everything possible to keep these birds thriving for another 10 days, because the bigger they get, the harder their organs have to work, the more strain on their legs and their feet. And so, it really is a legitimate concern that we get these birds successfully through the last 10 days or so. And this next concept is kind of vague, but in general, I've often heard and often seen it play out in our own flocks, that they put on the most finish or fill out the most in the last 8 to 10 days. Obviously that's relative to how long was your production length, and that's going to hold true most likely at week 5 and week 6, or like when they're 35 days old and 42 days old. But they grow fast in the beginning, and they eat a lot in the beginning and rest a lot in the beginning and drink a lot of water in the beginning, but then all of that ramps up like the last week or two of their production length, and they even grow faster. They're going to fill out bunches and bunches. So even though, like right here, I'm like, that's a good sized bird at day 30. It's a good sized rooster at day 30. I was looking for one standing up. I mean, that's a good sized bird at day 30. That was kind of funny. We were too close in to get the full effect of it, but these are good sized birds at day 30. They've got 10 more days they're going to eat and grow. So it really is a serious concept for any poultry farmer. Keep them living. That's the agenda. That's the name of the game. The real success threshold is maximize the growth potential while minimizing the risk of flock loss. So in other words, get as much frame, like how much they fill out in their bone structure and their skeletal structure, get as much frame growth as possible during the growing phase, and get as much feed to meat conversion as possible during the finish stage. In the start phase, you want to make sure that they've got a good foundation of ambient temperature, feed, complete nutrition, including water. And if you give them that good start in the beginning, that's going to get their organs working well, going to get their ability to thermoregulate working as well as it possibly can, and set them up for a good start in those other stages, the grow and the finish. But you want all of those things to happen, and that is maximizing the growth potential. But then also being mindful that after like 5 or 6 weeks, the longer we keep them in production, we're kind of on borrowed time. And sometimes we're on borrowed time prior to 6 weeks, and there can be flock mortality in birds at any time during production. But we want to minimize that flock loss. So that's one of the reasons we go ahead and have them processed definitely by 6 weeks old, but we're even taking some flocks this year planned for 5 weeks old, because we want to see where is that threshold. Can we maximize growth potential and minimize flock loss even more if we go ahead and have birds processed at 5 weeks old. So, but that's the name of the game. That's the threshold for success with your meat birds, and whatever your production system is, and how it lends itself to that. But maximize growth potential, minimize flock loss. That's the name of the game. So that's the agenda. What's generally on the to-do list when we are taking care of Cornish rock cross meat birds? Well, observe them a lot. Observe them a lot. When you're observing them, figure out, are they comfortable with the temperature? Okay, that's a big deal. So for example, we'll talk about temperature for a few sentences here. So right now, real field temperature outdoors where I'm at, and my barn basically matches real field temperature outdoors. Real field right now is 85 degrees Fahrenheit. Benchmark on 4-week-old Cornish rock cross meat chickens is they want an ambient temperature of about 75 degrees Fahrenheit. So we had turned fans off like 6 a.m. this morning. We had let fans run overnight, even though temperature was cold, because all the big doors were closed. So we had the barn more closed up, less airflow, less air movement with the barn doors closed. So we left the fans on to compensate for that. But at about 6:30 when we chored, we turned the fans off because it was in the 60s. The birds were comfortable, and they were comfortable until the temperature reached about 80 degrees Fahrenheit. Then we started seeing panting. So they did really good to make it beyond 75 degrees Fahrenheit. But this building with the doorways open tends to feel about 5 degrees cooler than it is outdoors actually. So that was pretty consistent with what we would expect. But once it got to be about 80, a little over 80, and we started seeing panting, I decided to turn the fans back on, and that helped the birds tremendously. That mitigated and eliminated any of the panting that I saw at the time. So the temperature may climb a little. They may show some coping mechanisms for rising temperature, but with the fans on, these birds are going to be comfortable. You can see they're staying, for the most part, near fans. Some are eating, some are drinking, so they're doing well. So ambient temperature is a big deal. Observe if your birds are comfortable. If they're showing heat stress, do something to make it cooler in their environment. If they're showing that they're too cold, like they're huddling up with each other, they're trying to find a warm spot in their environment, then do something. We've got a fan blowing down on them here. Then do something. If they're too cold, do something to warm it up. But learn the temperature reference points for Cornish rock cross meat chickens. Day-old birds, 95 degrees Fahrenheit is the ambient temperature they want. That drops 5 degrees each week. So, day 7, 90 degrees Fahrenheit for the next week. Day 14, 85 degrees Fahrenheit for the next week. Day 21, and go on, and day 28. But it drops 5 degrees Fahrenheit each week until you get to about 70 degrees Fahrenheit, and then that's really their comfort zone. And then ideally, you're having them processed by 5 weeks or by 6 weeks. So they'll want to be 65 degrees Fahrenheit to 70 degrees Fahrenheit ambient temperature then. So that's a big deal. So that'll be on your to-do list. Keep them comfortable ambient temperature wise, okay? Also, feed and water. So at this age, we want them in the big feeders and big waters, and this is what I was telling you, this is like a dream. So every row here is big feeders and big waters, and they place, my guys, my husband, my sons, they place 4 rows in here, and really got a shout out to Beverly Feeding Equipment in Beverly, Ohio. They are a huge part of our poultry operation, helping us get things ordered, helping us have access to great supplies, great feed, the things that we need for our birds. So Beverly Feeding Equipment helped us get these ordered, helped get them shipped here, and I just couldn't be more grateful, because For example, the waters, let me show you a little jumble of supplies. These, we just kind of pulled them out of this pen yesterday, so it still needs to be like sorted out, cleaned, organized. But all these little bitty, I guess, all these little bitty waters there, so we were using like 20 of those in this pen here. And to fill those waters, clean them, fill them, each time they needed attention was taken. If you were a lone person doing it by yourself, flying solo, it took about 90 minutes to take care of water in those little waters. So my middle son and I did chores this morning with these big waters, and it didn't even take us probably, and he did the watering, I'd say, by himself. I was opening doors, checking birds, checking fans, checking feeders, and he did the watering, and I'd say it didn't take 15 minutes. So these big waters took something that was like a 90-minute job and made it like a 20-minute job. And what a blessing. What an abundant blessing. And the energy, not only the time it saves you, but the energy it saves you. Because like just now, before recording, because I didn't have to spend an hour and a half on the waters, I had ample energy that I needed to condition the bedding. And that would have wiped me out if I'd had to also do the waters. And then with those small waters, they drink them so fast. By the time I would like fill the waters and then fill feed and check birds, they would have those little waters about empty, and I'd have to fill them again. So this is so much better. Poultry farmers' favorite. I've said that before, the easy fill drinkers, but also poultry farmers' favorite, these big feeders. Love them. So glad we've got this. And we actually do have enough feeders and waters still on the outside of the short wall to make one more row of feeders and waters. So we actually, I can see we ran them, and we talked about this all together, and the guys did what we all talked about. But we ran those rows east-west, and I, like, you know, feeder, water, feeder, water, feeder. We ran those east-west. So I'm thinking that if we run those north-south, maybe we could fit another row in here, and we have enough feeders and waters to be able to do that. So that's what we're going to attempt to do. But that's what will be on your to-do list. Observe, take care of ambient temperature, check your birds' wellness, make sure they have the feed they need, make sure they always have fresh water. And some of the particulars will depend on your production system, but that's the basics. Ambient temperature, feed, and water. And lighting. They need good lighting, either natural lighting from the sun, but you don't want the sun beating down on them. So like indirect sunlight, or if they're out like pastured, they need some kind of shade cover. Or if they're indoors, they still need ample lighting to trigger the pineal gland, to trigger them to actually get up and go to food and water on a circadian rhythm. But you also need to make sure that they have ample airflow coming in, and if they don't have ample natural light coming in, you can use artificial light. So even with light coming in, we actually run an overhead light, and we could install more of those, but that's what we use. And you can research lighting programs. There's different theories, different opinions on that. Lights can be on all the time, or if your birds are finishing in a pastured setting, they're going to have dark overnight. Or you can use lighting programs. Like we could turn our lights off for like a 4 or 5 hour stretch overnight and have them in total darkness for just like 4 hours out of every 24 hours. But you can utilize light to help influence feed consumption, but that's another topic for another day. So that's the big to-do list with your birds. Take care of ambient temperature, take care of food, take care of water, be aware of lighting, be aware of airflow, and take care of floor condition. Keep it dry underneath them, keep it something kind of cushiony underneath them, something they can dust bathe in, something they can lay down in and be comfortable. And you need to be able to keep it dry. So you got to either be able to condition what you have or put new on top of it. We need to keep it dry, because if we don't, it can cause chemical burns, like ammonia burns, on the exposed skin, like the feet and the underbelly. And you don't want that. You do not want that, okay? So keep the bedding dry. So that's really your to-do list with your birds. So now I'm drawing a blank. What else did I say that I would talk about? Said we would say, what's the agenda with raising them? Raise great chicken, give the birds good quality of life, and promote agriculture. What's the to-do list? Take care of their basic needs, keep them safe from predators, and keep them comfortable. So I'm going to have to leave it there because I can't remember the other things I was going to tell you. But anyway, I can refer back to it and pick it up in another video. And going to do another video here probably over the weekend on, at least for us, the major players in our poultry operation. I think that'll be a fun one to do. But I think I was just going to tell you like Poultry Farmer's Favorite and show you the new feeders and waters, which we just did. So, but this is great. I mean, the waters are awesome. The feeders are awesome. We'll look at a couple of them. We're not filling them up all the way. These were actually filled up last night. Each of them about a third of the way full. That took about 150 pounds. There's 12 of them out on the floor. We're not filling them totally full because we are sort of pacing the flock at how much they're eating. We want them to be eating 150 pounds a day, okay? And so that's what we're giving them. We're going to give them 150 pounds a day. And if we need to, we can give them more, but that seems to be satisfying them. So we're going to stick with that for now. But if y'all have any questions about raising Cornish rock cross meat chickens, please do put it in comments. Shout out where you are, and if you have a favorite farm supply store or feed mill. Our favorite is Beverly Feed and Equipment in Beverly, Ohio. Can't thank them enough. I'm not joking when I say they're a huge part of our small operation. I don't even know that we could do this without their role in our small poultry operation. We really appreciate them.